Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode on Tough Talks, talking about toxic relationships. We did a previous video where we looked at how to identify a possible toxic relationship. In this video, we're going to continue with those potential indicators and have a wrap-up discussion on toxic relationships. With us today is Magda Reynolds, who is a psychological counselor at NICRO. So Magda, on this slide, we're picking up from where we were in the first video. Lack of accountability in toxic relationships. Could you unpack that for us and what that might look like and how people could recognize people having a genuine reason not to take responsibility for something versus someone who has a more toxic lack of accountability? How can someone tell the difference between those two things?
So if you were to challenge somebody on, you did something that hurt me, then a normal response could be, the person would be a bit defensive because you are now approaching them in this way. And none of us like to be wrong or to, do this. But then after they potentially have thought about it, they can say, well, it really wasn't my intention to hurt you. I'm sorry. Or this is what I meant by that. I can communicate it in a different way in future. Those type of things to show that, even though they got defensive when they first heard it, they were actually able to then go sit with that process and see what their part in it was. Or they can tell you, I responded to you in this way because this is the communication I got from you. What can we do collectively to solve this for both of us? Because not one of us had the correct response here. If a person lacks accountability, they are just going to say, well, I didn't mean it that way. You shouldn't be so sensitive. Why do you always put things like this on me? It's because you approach me in this way. If you didn't tell me XYZ, I wouldn't have said this to you. So 0 of that is with him. All of it is then on you or the situation or with somebody else. But there's no reflection to see that they could have had a part in what happened.
I think it's important to draw a distinction between being held responsible for something and being held accountable for something. And we need to draw a difference. We need to make a distinction between those things. Responsibility is a bit more serious, where a person is responsible for the outcome, whereas accountability is looking at our role in the situation and the outcome. And no single person is responsible there because it's an interaction between multiple people. So taking accountability just means taking accountability for what you did, your choices, your actions, rather than being responsible for the fact that there was this disagreement and that's an argument of some kind. And I think people muddle the two together so that when somebody is trying to have a conversation about accountability, that other person is interpreting it as you're blaming me.
Yeah.
You're making me responsible. And we just need to be more aware of the difference between these two things.
Because in a relationship, any type of relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, even working relationships within a team, everybody is accountable to each other. Yes, there's a final stop of responsibility somewhere along the way. But in general, in these relationships, each person is accountable for what they do and the dynamic they bring to the relationship. And it's an important thing to keep in mind.
Cool. Okay, let's look at unequal effort. So here we're talking about the possibility that one person is investing more time and energy and consideration into the relationship, whereas the other person, there's a marked difference in terms of how engaged and invested they are. They might be obviously neglectful or indifferent, or they might just be passive and you can't really put your finger on it. But the contributions the two people are making are not really comparable. Can you talk a bit more about that and what that might look like?
So there's a few things that could be happening there. The old saying goes, the power in a relationship lies with the one who cares less. So it could be that, we're a bit commitment shy, so we don't want to put in all this effort and all these things. We're trying to keep you at a distance to protect ourselves. Or it could show a genuine lack of care and consideration for the other person. It could be that they are truly not aware that maybe they were raised in an environment where they had to do certain things, and when that was met, then it was fine. Somebody else did all the other things for them. So it really, there's a few things that could be playing in here. But now if you are a person, for example, who, let's take a birthday. For somebody's birthday, you have flowers delivered, you buy a gift, you take them out, you book them for, you know, manicure, facial, all these things. And then when your birthday comes around, you get like one balloon or something, and the person didn't try to make it special for you. And special and effort doesn't mean money. A lot of people would say, oh, but I don't have the finances to do this. You don't need the finances. You can make little cards. There's quite a few things that you can do for free that would show engagement and effort. It's not something that has to come with a price tag. So we often see excuses also to say, oh, you know, if I had the money. It doesn't cost money to write somebody a little card, or even to go take them and have a walk by the beach, that type of thing. And you need to have a discussion in your relationship what effort looks like to each of you. Because for me, effort may be washing the dishes, but for you, effort is me actually spending some quality time with you. So the way we interpret those things are also different. So I might be feeling I'm doing all of this effort for you, but you're seeing none of it because you don't realize this is how I put in effort. So just to have a discussion as well about what effort looks like for each person.
And I think expectations as well. I think people should also be clear in their communication about what they're expecting, and if those expectations are not met, how do they communicate that? I think maybe some people expect the other person to just know certain things or understand certain things, and when they don't get that, it's then interpreted as you don't care, you're not making effort, whereas actually you're not communicating clearly about what's important to you and you know what that would look like. But then there are genuine instances where you have been communicating, you have been clear, and the other person is just not hearing you. And that then indicates that there's a problem with communication and mutual understanding here. Alrighty, let's move on to constant dramas. I think this is the more obvious one. I think we could all recognize this in the people that we've worked with, our friends and family members. There are just certain relationships where there always seems to be something going on. And if there's nothing going on, they will find something to have something going on about. And that can just become the default. And we don't see it for what it is. But as an outsider looking in, you go, oh my God, you know, that this person is never happy. There's always something that they're having a problem with wherever they go. It's a pattern. And it's being able to recognize that and think about the impact that that has on your mental and emotional well-being. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
So this one is also, you know, you can have this person where if you confront them on, listen, I didn't like X, Y, and Z, then they would say, oh, you know, but I'm going through such a difficult time. This person was sick, this person passed away, whatever the case may be, which is all valid. But now there's a certain point at which you can't use that anymore, because you also have to look at your own healing and how you go about those things. So if a person is using something as an excuse 5 years down the line, just when they are being cornered about something, then you have to know that, listen, this is not an actual thing. This is an escape route now that we've noted works with everyone, because people feel bad if you tell them things like that. So obviously they're going to leave you alone. So we also need to look for learned patterns, so learned helplessness, how they get away with this type of behavior. Is this person who is consistently, I almost want to say chronically incompetent, that, you know, all of when you speak to them, they just say, oh, I really didn't know how to do that. And even after you've showed them a million times or spoke to them a million times in your actual, let's say, romantic relationship, friendship, how you want something done, they still don't do it that way. They are using that against you. This is
as
that thing
weaponized incompetence.
Yes. So this is that thing about, you know, if I break a few plates, I don't have to wash the dishes. They are doing that with you, just in an emotional way.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about the person who, if there isn't drama going on in a relationship. They feel the relationship doesn't have life or vitality or is boring. And so just, I think, unpack that a little bit. Where does that come from and what exactly is going on there? Do they genuinely prefer a relationship that's dramatic, or is it an indication of something else with that person that's coming out in that way?
It's usually an indicator of something else. So, for example, there is an attachment style that is specifically prone to that. So if you had a very chaotic relationship with your parents, or if something happened there with attachment, then oftentimes a very stable, normal looking relationship is boring to you, because you find that those high highs and the real lows is what you learned as a relationship pattern and what that should look like. So you find yourself getting bored with the normality and the mundane of just a regular relationship.
I think I've seen quite a few clips on social media where there are people talking about, a good man is boring. I want somebody that, makes me feel alive. That's not healthy. And it's an indication of that's not something that somebody should be striving for. And to be very aware if your potential partner thinks that way, that is definitely going to have a negative impact on you, because you're going to be drawn into that, and that's not actually in your best interests.
Yeah.
Okay, so emotional exhaustion, I think, would be inevitable if somebody is being exposed to these things on a regular basis. I think that's straightforward.
Yeah.
Disregard for boundaries. So I think here people struggle because they're also not very clear as to what their boundaries are. They just know they don't like something. And so for a person to invest some time in working out what are their values and what do they consider acceptable and unacceptable, that makes it a lot easier to communicate that to the other person, and also to clearly identify this person's behavior is actually crossing a boundary and I need to do something about it. Do you want to unpack that a little bit more?
And setting boundaries is scary for most people, because when you set boundaries, the people who have the biggest reaction to the boundaries are usually the people that you need the boundaries for. And people want to avoid that. So, we don't want to have that explosion happen. So we'll just kind of white knuckle it through this whole situation. But that's not healthy for you, and it's not good for you. It's going to leave you drained and exhausted and all these things. So you need to get to a point where you actually say, listen, I'm not comfortable with XYZ. Could we rather do it in a different type of way? Would you mind approaching it in a different way? You're not going to be attacking the person. You're just very clearly going to state what it is that you don't like, what you feel when those things happen, and that if there's a different way that the person can go about it. So it's not an attack. I know it's going to be perceived as an attack by the other person, but it is not an attack. It is something you need to do to safeguard yourself and your own emotional well-being.
I think it would be good to do a deeper dive into boundary setting in a separate video. So I think a lot of people, as you said, struggle with this. And when they get the negative reaction from the other person, they think, oh, I'm expecting too much. I'm being demanding. I'm trying to control this person. And the language that comes back at them is sometimes you're trying to control me. You're limiting my freedom. You're trying to tell me what I cannot do. And that reframes what started off as a valid conversation about boundaries into, oh my God, maybe I don't have the right to ask this person not to do this. So I think we should do a deeper dive into that, and then maybe do some role modeling on how to handle those difficult conversations. So the emotional roller coaster, I think that's pretty straightforward. If you're in a relationship that has these kinds of things, you're going to often feel exhausted. But then also there's the ups. If there weren't ever any ups, you probably wouldn't stay in this relationship. And there we get the love bombing and that kind of emotional manipulation, which you might not recognize as in manipulation because you're not seeing it from a step back. Do you want to unpack that a little bit? How have you seen this play out in people's lives?
So, you would get people who would say, my partner is just very passionate. And then we're referring to things go very well and then they go really bad. And because that is portrayed on TV and on the media as, this person has this passion, it's accepted. When in fact it is placing immense strain on the person they're in a relationship with, because that is not sustainable. You cannot be in a real connected relationship with a person that you never know where you stand. You don't know if you say this today, what reaction is going to come from that. People like consistency and to be able to know that, if I tell you this, no matter what's happening, even if you're having a bad day, you might be a bit snappy, but you're not going to blow it up. You're going to just take the feedback and move on. With this, it's good when it's real good. That's, as you mentioned now, why people stay, but it's not sustainable. You're going to get burnt out from this.
Yeah. And I mean, the negative impact that this must have on the other person in terms of how draining it must be and how completely unnecessary it is. And I think maybe almost like in domestic violence situations where they go through the cycle of a honeymoon period and then, oh, okay, no, it's all better now. And then the negative thing happens. You just get trapped into the cycle and you might think, well, the next time that this happened, the next time this person starts to treat me better, you think, okay, well, we're done now, we can move on, but it's just the beginning of a new cycle. Yeah, I think it must be very challenging to be stuck in that situation and being able to see an exit.
And very emotionally draining.
Yeah. And then isolation and dependency. So this one is huge. And this can start off in very simple little subtle ways that you don't recognize it. Maybe, I just want to spend more time with you. Don't you want to spend the weekend with me? Let's go and have a holiday by ourselves. And bit by bit, a person's network is chipped away. And initially, they don't see that as a problem, but eventually they're going to look around and go, I don't have any close friends anymore. I've lost touch with my family. And that was actually the goal all along. And have you seen this play out in people's lives?
Many times. And then also, it's not just to say, okay, I would like to spend some alone time with you and that is very much so. But the other thing is, these people also chip away at the quality of relationship you have with other people. You may be a person who started out with very strong family bonds, and suddenly you wake up on a day and you realize, wait a minute, I haven't spoken to these people in months or days or years. That wasn't something that was the norm for you. But because your partner very slowly and very insidiously started poking away at the quality of those relationships by, dropping hints here and there, saying things that the family would react to or the friends would react to, and then telling you, see, I told you they don't like me, they are, biased against me, whatever the case may be, and then showing you the evidence now of what is happening that they're telling you, when in fact they have orchestrated this little circus themselves. And you wake up and you find that these relationships are now gone, or they have been severely damaged because of what happened.
So let's just talk about a healthy version of, if you're in a relationship that's healthy, what is considered acceptable and healthy in terms of having friends and contact with family, and when that might be, too much. Like you do need to have some degree of separation from the family. So how does a person navigate this? What would be toxic? Either absolutely no contact for no valid reason, or they actually just live with their family and you can't ever have some alone time. How does someone make sense of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable?
So look, this one is also tricky because now it also depends on the type of relationships you have with the other people. So, for example, if you are a person who goes out to party with your friends every weekend and you come home smashed, your partner isn't going to like that. That is not something that people are going to accept. So there's going to be a discussion around that. And that may not be entirely a bad thing because you shouldn't come home drunk every weekend. that is not something that has to happen. And then the swing side of that is, if you have friends that you see maybe once a month for boys get together or girls get together, whatever the case may be, and these are friends that really encourage you and build you up and pour into you, and it's something you set aside that is important, and that starts to slip, then and that is something that's being questioned and queried, then you kind of have to pay attention to that. The same with family situations. We're not saying accept the family members that we want to keep over there. But if there is a strong bond in the family and it's healthy relationships that you can see, these people build each other up, respect each other's boundaries, they're not in each other's space. If they have arguments, they're able to sort it out, because all people have disagreements. Arguments is natural, but you have to be able to proceed from there and to not go into personal attacks and to just talk about the problem itself. If people are able to do that, what is the problem that you're flagging exactly? So what is it about that setup that could potentially be triggering you? And then if you are able to reflect on that and actually go deal with what that is, you may solve the problem. But so it's a very fine line to walk, because relationships are not cut and dry. There's dynamic things either way. So, everybody is not always going to like everybody, but you just have the balance to say, even if I don't like you, I can still respect you as a person, and I can still respect that my partner likes you and wants to spend time with you, and you're not doing them any harm. In fact, it seems to be doing them good, so it's okay.
Yeah, so I think there it requires assessing each relationship on a case-by-case basis, and also looking for patterns. If your partner has a problem with a whole lot of different people who come from different contexts and they have a different role in your life, then the problem may well be your partner. If there are legitimate reasons why your partner might be concerned with you spending time with these people, or those people are having a negative impact on them, like toxic family members, then that's a conversation that you need to look at from another angle. So yeah, it's very complicated. But I think here we want to draw attention to what we see a lot, in that healthy, valuable relationships are being lost because the toxic partner does not want you to have contact with those people, and so they gradually chip away at that. But as you said, there are many different instances of what that could look like, and sometimes there might be reasons why your partner wants you to spend less time with certain people. Yeah, so I think that one's quite tricky and requires a lot of open and honest communication between you and your partner. And then lastly, I think it's pretty straightforward. Somebody who, when you're trying to have a conversation with them about things that are challenging for you or things that are causing you unhappiness, the conversation immediately shifts to blaming and excuses. And that's not constructive. If you're in a relationship, be it with friends, family, the workplace, or a romantic relationship, if the relationship is to work, it will always encounter difficulties and challenges, but you must be able to have a conversation about these things in a relatively calm way. Yeah. If you can't ever bring those things up, then that indicates something's not quite right. Do you want to add to that?
No, so just as you said, if all people get defensive when you bring something up, that is a problem. That is usually the natural reaction. But it's how they're able to deal with that. Are you able to say, okay, I just need 10 minutes to walk around, calm down, then we can have this discussion, or please just give me the day that we can have this discussion tomorrow. That's fine, because then you can have the discussion when you're both calm, when you're in the right frame of mind. But somebody who says, give me 10 minutes and then they never come back to you, or who says this is just a you problem, or you know how difficult my life at work has been, those type of things should be flags that something here isn't correct.
They're not interested in looking at fixing the problem or looking at what concerns you, then that's an indicator they're not actually on the same page as you. Okay, well, I think that's all that we have time for today. So this is part 2 of a 2-part series. We had an earlier video on some of the indicators of a possible toxic relationship, and in this video, we wrapped up that discussion. So I think we will look at doing a deeper dive into boundaries in another episode. So please, if you're interested in that, do follow our Tough Talks channel. Magda, any last closing comments from you before we wrap up?
just to say, relationships are never simple things to navigate. So if you find that you are struggling, get a third party, whoever it may be that you trust, or a counselor or somebody to just act as a mediator, that you can then potentially have the discussions you need to have and get a roadmap on the way forward. There's no shame in that, because human relationships are inherently difficult to navigate. So, don't struggle alone. There is assistance out there that is available.
Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you next time.